She was there the whole time. I saw her do it.
The royal decree arrived at dawn, sealed with blood and silver, declaring that within 3 moon cycles, the heir to the throne would be presented before the High Council. Luna Cassia stood in the grand hall of the Moonstone Palace, her fingers trembling as they traced the ancient words burned into parchment. The child sleeping in the nursery upstairs, the boy she'd raised for 2 years, the boy she'd sung to sleep every night, the boy whose first word had been "Mama," was about to be torn from her arms by pack law itself. But here's what made her blood run cold. The child wasn't hers. Not by birth. Not by blood. And in a world where bloodlines determined everything, where a forbidden bloodline could mean execution, where the pack lived and died by blood oaths sworn under full moons, this secret could destroy them all. Before I continue this story of betrayal and forbidden love, tell me the city you're watching from so I can send you a hug. Because what happens next will break your heart. The child's name was Marcus. 2 years old, with eyes like molten gold and hair as dark as a raven's wing. Those eyes, they were the problem. They were his father's eyes. And his father was Lucius, the Alpha King's only son, who had died in battle before Marcus was ever born. Or so everyone believed. Cassia had claimed Marcus as her own the night he arrived at the palace gates, wrapped in blood-stained cloth, a note pinned to his blanket that read only, "Protect him. She's coming." She never told anyone about the note. She burned it that very night, watching the flames consume the warning, pretending she could burn away the truth as easily. For 2 years she'd lived this lie. For 2 years she'd been the perfect Luna, the grieving widow who'd miraculously given birth just weeks after her mate's death, though no one had known she was pregnant. The pack had whispered, of course. They always whispered. But whispers couldn't override pack law. And pack law said a Luna's word was sacred. Till now. Until Priscilla arrived. Priscilla Valeria. The name tasted like poison on Cassia's tongue. She'd appeared 3 weeks ago, emerging from the northern forests with a retinue of wolves loyal to the old bloodlines, the ancient families who'd ruled before the current Alpha King had seized power. She was beautiful in that dangerous way. Sharp cheekbones, silver hair despite being barely 30, eyes like winter ice. And she'd made a claim that shattered everything. She said Marcus was her son. She said she'd given birth to him in secret, hidden away in the northern territories, fleeing from enemies who wanted to eliminate the last of the true royal bloodline. She said Cassia had stolen him. And she had proof. Documents bearing official seals, witnesses from the northern packs, even a blood oath sworn before the old gods. The High Council had no choice but to investigate. And that's how they'd all ended up here, in the Grand Court of Wolves, with Marcus's fate hanging in the balance. Cassia stood before the council now. 5 ancient wolves who'd lived for centuries, who'd seen empires rise and fall, who could smell lies like blood in water. The head counselor, Octavius, sat in the center, his white beard reaching his chest, his eyes clouded with the weight of too much history. To his right sat Livia, the only female counselor, known for her ruthless interpretation of pack law. To his left Tiberius, Quintus, and Aurelius, all of them stone-faced, all of them impossible to read. Priscilla stood across from Cassia, her silver hair catching the light streaming through the stained glass windows. Between them, in a small chair specially brought in for the occasion, sat Marcus. He looked so small in that massive courtroom, his little legs swinging, not quite reaching the floor. He clutched a wooden wolf figurine that Cassia had carved for him, his security object, the thing he carried everywhere. He didn't understand what was happening. How could he? He was barely 2 years old. "Let us begin," Octavius said, his voice like grinding stone. "Luna Cassia, you stand accused of violating sacred pack law by claiming a child not of your blood as your heir. This is a crime punishable by exile or death, depending on intent. How do you answer this charge?" Cassia's throat felt like it was closing. Every eye in the court was on her. Hundreds of pack members, all of them waiting to see if their Luna would crumble. She could feel Priscilla's smug satisfaction radiating across the space between them. "The child is mine," Cassia said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I gave birth to him 2 years ago, 3 weeks after my mate's death. I raised him. I nursed him. I know every birthmark on his body, every preference, every fear. He is my son." "And yet you have no witnesses to this birth," Livia said, her tone sharp as a blade. "No midwife. No healer. No record in the pack archives. For a Luna to give birth to the heir of the Moonstone pack with absolutely no documentation is unusual." "I was grieving," Cassia said. "My mate had just died. I wanted privacy. I delivered him alone in my chambers, because I couldn't bear to have others around me." "Convenient," Priscilla said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "How terribly convenient that there's no evidence at all." "My word is evidence," Cassia snapped. "Pack law states that a Luna's testimony is sacred." "Pack law also states that a Luna cannot lie about bloodlines," Tiberius interjected. "And we have here a woman who claims to be the child's true mother, with documentation that predates your claim." Priscilla stepped forward, pulling a rolled parchment from her robes. "This is Marcus's birth record, registered with the Northern Packs on the very night of his birth. You can see the date. It's more than 2 weeks before Luna Cassia claims to have given birth. The seal is authentic. The witnesses are verified." Octavius took the document, studying it with ancient eyes. Minutes passed. The courtroom was so silent that Cassia could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. "The document appears legitimate," Octavius finally said. Cassia felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. This couldn't be happening. She'd protected Marcus for 2 years. She'd given him everything. And now they were going to rip him away because of some paperwork, some lies told by a woman who'd never held him through a nightmare, who'd never kissed his scraped knees, who'd never taught him his first word. "I also have this," Priscilla said, producing a small vial of blood. "This is my blood, drawn this morning under the supervision of the Council's own healers. I propose a blood oath trial. Let the old magic decide who speaks truth. Let Marcus's blood be tested against mine, and against Cassia's. The blood will reveal the truth that words cannot." The court erupted in whispers. A blood oath trial hadn't been performed in decades. The old magic was unpredictable, dangerous. But it was also infallible. Cassia's mind raced. If they performed the blood oath trial, they would discover that Marcus wasn't her biological child. The magic would reveal it instantly. But would it also reveal that he wasn't Priscilla's? Or had Priscilla somehow found a way to manipulate even the old magic? "I object to this trial," Cassia said quickly. "It's barbaric. The child is barely 2 years old. To subject him to old magic at such a young age could damage him." "The magic is perfectly safe," Livia said. "It requires only a single drop of blood. Surely if you're telling the truth, you have nothing to fear." Cassia looked at Marcus. He was playing with his wooden wolf, making it jump across the arm of his chair, completely oblivious to the fact that his entire future was being decided around him. She'd promised to protect him. She'd sworn it on the night he arrived, when she'd held his tiny body and felt the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders like a mantle. But how could she protect him now? "I need time," Cassia said. "I need time to consult with my advisors too." "Time is exactly what we don't have," Priscilla interrupted. "Every day that child spends with a woman who stole him is another day stolen from his true mother. I demand the blood oath trial proceed immediately." Octavius raised his hand for silence. "The council will deliberate. Court is adjourned for 1 hour. Luna Cassia, Priscilla Valeria, you will both remain in your chambers until we reach a decision." Guards stepped forward to escort them out. As Cassia passed Marcus's chair, she reached out, desperate to touch him, to hold him one more time. But a guard stepped between them, and she was led away, her arms empty, her heart shattering. In her chambers, Cassia paced like a caged wolf. 1 hour. She had 1 hour to figure out how to save Marcus from this nightmare. The truth was both simple and impossibly complicated. Marcus wasn't her biological son, but he was also most definitely not Priscilla's son. The woman was lying. Cassia was certain of it. But proving it was another matter entirely. The note that had arrived with Marcus that night. She'd burned it, but she still remembered every word. Protect him. She's coming. Who had written it? Marcus's real mother, obviously. A woman who'd been desperate enough to give up her child to save him. A woman who'd known that someone was hunting him. Priscilla. Had to be Priscilla. But why? What did Priscilla want with a child who wasn't hers? What was she really after? The answer hit Cassia like a physical blow: the throne. Marcus, as Lucius's son, was the true heir to the Moonstone Pack. The current Alpha King, Lucius's father, was ancient and weakening. When he died, the pack would need an heir. If Priscilla could claim Marcus as her son, if she could position herself as his regent until he came of age, she would effectively rule the pack. It was a power play. Marcus was just a pawn. A knock at the door made Cassia jump. A servant entered, bowing low. "Luna, there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. She says she has information about the child." Cassia's heart leapt. "Send her in." The woman who entered was old, bent with age, her face hidden beneath a dark hood. But when she pushed the hood back, Cassia recognized her. Drusilla, one of the Northern Pack's healers, someone who'd been part of Priscilla's retinue. "I don't have much time," Drusilla said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Priscilla will notice I'm gone." But I couldn't stay silent any longer. "The child, Marcus, he's not her son." "I know he's not," Cassia said. "Tell me everything." 3 years ago, Priscilla was exiled from the Northern Packs for attempting to murder the pack leader's mate. She vanished into the wild territories, and we thought we'd seen the last of her. But she came back 6 months ago, claiming she'd had a vision from the old gods. She said they'd told her about a child of true royal bloodline, hidden somewhere in the Moonstone Pack. She became obsessed with finding him. Why? Power. She believes that if she can claim the child, she can use him to seize control of the Moonstone Pack, and eventually all the packs. She's been gathering followers, wolves who believe in the old ways, who think the current Alpha King is too weak. Marcus is her key to everything. But how did she get the documents? The birth records, the witnesses? Drusilla's expression darkened. She forged them. And the witnesses, some were paid, others were threatened. She's very good at making people do what she wants. The blood vial she has isn't even hers. She got it from her younger sister, who died last year. They were twins, nearly identical in blood composition. The old magic won't be able to tell the difference. Cassia felt sick. So if they do the blood oath trial, the magic will show that the blood in her vial matches Marcus's blood type, but that means nothing. Marcus has a rare blood type, one that runs in the old royal lines. Priscilla's sister had the same type by chance. It's not proof of motherhood, but Priscilla is betting that the council won't look deeper than that. "I need proof," Cassia said urgently. "I need something that proves Priscilla is lying." Drusilla reached into her robes and pulled out a small leather journal. "This is Priscilla's diary. I stole it from her chambers this morning. It details everything. Her plans, her lies, the names of everyone she's bribed or threatened. It's written in code, but I know how to read it. I can testify before the council." Hope surged through Cassia. "Will you do it? Will you testify?" "Yes," Drusilla said firmly. "I'm old. I'm dying. I have nothing left to lose. But you need to protect that child, Luna. Because if Priscilla gets her hands on him, she'll use him until he's no longer useful, and then..." She drew a finger across her throat. A bell rang, the signal that the council was ready to reconvene. Cassia clutched the journal to her chest. "Thank you. Thank you for your courage." "Save him," Drusilla said. "That's all the thanks I need." The courtroom was even more packed than before. Word had spread through the pack that the council was about to make a decision, and everyone wanted to witness history. Cassia took her place, the journal hidden in the folds of her dress. Across from her, Priscilla stood with a triumphant smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Marcus was brought back in, carried by a guard this time. He'd been crying. Cassia could see the tear tracks on his cheeks. The sight made her wolf howl inside her, desperate to comfort him. Tavius stood. The council has reached a decision. We will proceed with the blood oath trial. However, we will do so with additional safeguards. The magic will not only test blood relation, but will also test intent. If either party has sworn a false oath, if either party seeks to deceive this council, the magic will reveal it. Priscilla's smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. I welcome this test. I have nothing to hide. Before we begin, Cassia said, stepping forward, I have evidence that this council must see. She produced the journal, holding it up for all to see. This is Priscilla Valeria's personal diary, stolen by one of her own retinue who could no longer stomach her deception. It contains detailed proof of her plans to forge documents, bribe witnesses, and claim a child who is not hers in order to seize power over the Moonstone Pack. The courtroom exploded. Priscilla's face went white, then red with rage. That's a lie. That journal is a forgery. This Luna is so desperate that she's resorted to creating false evidence. Then you won't mind if we examine it, Livia said, gesturing for a guard to bring the journal to the council. As the council began to examine the journal, with Drusilla stepping forward to translate the code, Priscilla's composure cracked. This is absurd. You're going to believe a senile old woman over me. I have documents. I have witnesses. I have. You have nothing but lies, Drusilla said, her voice ringing through the courtroom with surprising strength. I was there when you forged the birth records. I was there when you threatened the Northern Pack witnesses. I watched you steal your dead sister's blood for this deception. And I'm here now to tell the truth, because that child deserves better than to be a pawn in your power games. The journal was being passed from counselor to counselor, their expressions growing darker with each page. Octavius finally looked up. His ancient eyes filled with cold fury. Priscilla Valeria, these writings detail not only fraud, but conspiracy to commit treason against the Moonstone Pack. If even half of what's written here is true, it's all lies. Priscilla shrieked. Her composure had completely shattered now, revealing the desperation beneath. That child is mine. The old gods told me so. I have a right to him. The old gods told you nothing, Tiberius said coldly. And you have no rights here. But Priscilla wasn't done. In a move so fast that even the guards were caught off guard, she lunged toward Marcus. Her fingers had almost reached him when Cassia's wolf surged forward, years of instinct and love overriding every other thought. She shifted mid-leap, her human form giving way to her wolf, and she put herself between Priscilla and Marcus, snarling with every tooth bared. Priscilla stumbled back, and guards immediately surrounded her, forcing her to her knees. The courtroom was in chaos, wolves shouting, children crying. But through it all, Cassia kept her position, her wolf body shielding Marcus, ready to tear apart anyone who tried to reach him. Enough! Octavius's voice boomed through the hall, magically amplified, silencing everyone instantly. Priscilla Valeria, you are hereby charged with fraud, conspiracy, and attempted kidnapping. You will be held in our dungeons until a full trial can be conducted. Guards, remove her. As Priscilla was dragged away, still screaming about her rights and the old gods, Cassia shifted back to her human form. A servant quickly brought her a robe to preserve her modesty. She immediately turned to Marcus, who was crying now, scared by all the shouting and the chaos. She lifted him into her arms, and he buried his face against her shoulder, his little body shaking with sobs. "Mama," he whimpered. "Mama, scared." "I know, baby," she whispered, her own tears finally falling. "I know. But it's over now. Mama's here. Mama's got you." Octavius watched this display, his expression unreadable. "Luna Cassia," he said slowly. "The charges against you still stand. You claimed a child not of your blood as your heir. While we now know that Priscilla's claim was false, that does not explain how you came to have this child, or why you lied about his origins. Cassia took a deep breath. This was it. The moment of truth. With Marcus still in her arms, she faced the council. 2 years ago, this child was left at the palace gates with a note warning that someone was coming for him. I don't know who his birth mother is. I don't know his true lineage. But I knew that he was in danger, and I knew that the only way to protect him was to claim him as my own. So that's what I did. I lied to the pack. I lied to you. And I would do it again 1,000 times over because that's what love is. Love is protection, even when it costs you everything. The courtroom was silent. Even the council seemed at a loss for words. It was Livia who finally spoke. The law is clear. A Luna cannot claim a child of unknown lineage as her heir. The bloodline must be verified. Then verify it, Cassia said. Do the blood oath trial. Test Marcus's blood. Find out who he really is. But I'm telling you right now, whatever that magic reveals, it won't change the fact that I'm his mother in every way that matters. Octavius nodded slowly. Very well. We will proceed with the blood oath trial. But only to determine the child's true lineage, not to strip him from your care. The council recognizes that whatever else may be true, you have raised this child with love and devotion. The ritual was prepared quickly. Ancient bowls were brought out, filled with sacred water from the pack's founding spring. A healer came forward with a silver needle, sterilized in moonlight. Marcus whimpered when he saw the needle, but Cassia held him close, singing softly to him, the lullaby she'd sung every night since he'd arrived. The healer took a single drop of blood from Marcus's finger, letting it fall into the sacred water. The water began to glow, pulsing with ancient magic. Colors swirled through it, gold and silver, crimson and white, all the shades of wolf magic that had existed since the first packs were formed. And then, gradually, the colors began to settle into a pattern. The council leaned forward, studying the pattern intently. Gasps echoed through the courtroom as the pattern became clear. Impossible, Aurelius whispered. Octavius stood, his face pale. The child carries the bloodline of the first pack. The original wolves. The ones who walked with the gods themselves before the Great Division. The courtroom erupted in shock. The first pack was legendary. They were the wolves from whom all other packs had descended, the original shifters who'd been blessed by the moon goddess herself. But they'd supposedly died out centuries ago, their bloodline lost to time and war. There's more, Livia said, her finger tracing the pattern in the water. The secondary line. It's Lucius. The child is Lucius's son. Cassia felt the world tilt. Lucius, her dead mate, the Alpha King's son, was Marcus's father? But how? Lucius had died in battle before Marcus was born. Lucius had another mate, Quintus said slowly, reading the blood pattern. Before his arranged mating to Luna Cassia, a woman of the first pack bloodline. She bore him a son in secret, then she. He paused. The blood tells a story of death. The mother died shortly after giving birth. But before she died, she sent the child to the one person she knew would protect him, the woman Lucius had been forced to marry. Cassia's mind reeled. Lucius had never told her about another mate. But their marriage had been political, arranged by the Alpha King to unite two powerful packs. They'd been fond of each other, had developed a working partnership, but they'd never truly been in love. Had Lucius been in love with someone else the entire time? And had that woman, dying, trusted Cassia with her most precious gift? The child is the legitimate heir to the Moonstone Pack, Octavius declared. Through his father's line, he inherits the Alpha King's throne. Through his mother's line, he carries the blood of the first pack. This child is perhaps the most important wolf to be born in centuries. Marcus, blissfully unaware of the significance of what was being said, had stopped crying and was playing with Cassia's hair, tugging on it gently the way he always did when he was feeling secure. "Mama," he said. "Home now." "Yes, baby," Cassia whispered, her heart breaking and healing simultaneously. "We're going home." But Octavius wasn't finished. However, this revelation brings new complications. The child's true lineage must be announced to all the packs. His mother's family, if any survive, have a right to know of his existence. And his training must begin immediately. He must be prepared for his destiny. His destiny is to be a child, Cassia said fiercely. He's 2 years old. His destiny is to play and learn and grow up loved and safe. The throne can wait. The throne never waits, Tiberius said grimly. Already, word of this trial will be spreading. Other packs will come, seeking to claim the child, to use him for their own purposes. You've protected him admirably, Luna Cassia, but you cannot protect him from the entire wolf world. Watch me, Cassia said. Livia actually smiled at that. The Luna has fire. But she'll need it. The council proposes this. Marcus will remain in Luna Cassia's care, as she has proven herself his mother in all the ways that matter. But he will be officially recognized as the heir to both the Moonstone Pack and the First Pack lineage. His full name will be Marcus Lucius Augustus, and he will be given all the rights and protections that title entails. And the responsibilities? Cassia asked warily. Those will come with time, Octavius said. For now he is a child. Let him remain one. But Luna Cassia, you must understand. You are now the guardian of the most important child in our world. This responsibility will never be easy. There will always be those who seek to use him, harm him, or claim him. I know, Cassia said, holding Marcus tighter. I've known that since the night he arrived. The council conferred briefly among themselves. Then Octavius addressed the courtroom. This council rules that Luna Cassia acted in the child's best interests when she claimed him as her own. While technically a violation of pack law, her actions were driven by maternal instinct and protective love. She is therefore absolved of any wrongdoing. Furthermore, the council recognizes her as Marcus Lucius Augustus's legal mother and guardian until he reaches his majority. Relief flooded through Cassia so intensely that her knees nearly buckled. She'd won. Marcus was safe. He was hers. But as the court began to disperse, as pack members came forward to congratulate her and express their shock at Marcus's true lineage, Cassia caught sight of something that made her blood run cold. In the back of the courtroom, half hidden in shadow, stood a figure in a dark cloak. For just a moment, the figure's hood fell back, revealing a woman's face. Sharp features, dark eyes that glowed with barely contained power. The woman smiled, slow and predatory. Then she raised one hand to her lips and blew Cassia a kiss. And Cassia knew, with absolute certainty, that this wasn't over. Priscilla had been a pawn, or perhaps just the opening move in a much larger game. The real enemy was still out there, watching, waiting. Marcus tugged on her hair again. Mama. Why sad? Cassia forced a smile, kissing the top of his head. I'm not sad, sweetheart. Mama's just tired. Let's go home. As they left the courtroom, surrounded by guards now, with her new title and responsibilities weighing heavy on her shoulders, Cassia made herself a promise. Whatever came next, whoever was orchestrating this game from the shadows, she would be ready. Because she wasn't just a Luna anymore. She was a mother. And there was no force in this world or any other that could stand between a mother and her child. But that night, as she put Marcus to bed in his nursery, singing the familiar lullaby, he said something that stopped her cold. Mama, he said, his golden eyes solemn in the dim light. The dark lady came to see me. Cassia's heart stopped. What dark lady, sweetheart? The one from the court. She said she knew my first mama. The one who went to sleep forever. Marcus yawned, his little fist rubbing his eye. She said she wants to tell me stories about her. She said she'll come back soon. Marcus, when did the dark lady talk to you? Today. When the guards took me to the waiting room. She was there. She smelled like snow. Another yawn. She said I have her eyes. But I have your eyes, Mama. Don't I? You have beautiful eyes, Cassia whispered, her mind racing. Someone had gotten to Marcus during the trial. Someone had accessed him while he was supposedly under guard. What else did the dark lady say? But Marcus was already asleep. his breathing deep and even. His little hand clutched around his wooden wolf. Cassia stood slowly, every instinct screaming danger. She moved to the window, looking out over the moonlit gardens. And there at the edge of the forest she saw her, the woman from the courtroom, still watching, still waiting. Their eyes met across the distance. The woman raised her hand in a mocking salute. Then she turned and vanished into the trees, leaving only darkness behind. Cassia pulled the curtains shut and activated every security spell she knew, layering them over Marcus's room until the air hummed with protective magic. Then she climbed into the chair beside his bed, a blade hidden beneath the cushions, her wolf on high alert. She would not sleep tonight. She couldn't, because now she understood the truth. Priscilla's plot had never been about Marcus at all. It had been a distraction, a test to see how strongly Cassia would fight for him, to measure her strengths and weaknesses. The real enemy had been watching the entire time, learning, planning. And whoever she was, she had known Marcus's birth mother. She had known about the first pack bloodline. And she wanted Marcus for reasons that Cassia couldn't yet fathom. The game had only just begun. As dawn broke over the Moonstone Palace, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Cassia held vigil over the sleeping child. Marcus stirred, opened his eyes, and smiled when he saw her. "Good morning, Mama," he said. "Good morning, my love," she whispered back, smoothing his dark hair. "Mama, I had a dream. About my first mama. She was singing to me. The same song you sing." Cassia's throat tightened. "What did she look like in your dream?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Like light. She was made of light." And she said. He paused, his little face scrunching up with concentration. "She said to tell you thank you. For keeping the promise." "What promise, sweetheart?" "I don't know. That's what she said." He wiggled out of bed, already moving on to more important toddler concerns. "Can we have pancakes?" "Yes," Cassia said, following him toward the door. "We can have pancakes." But her mind was elsewhere, turning over Marcus's words. Promise. What promise had Marcus's birth mother made her keep? The note had simply said, "Protect him." But perhaps there had been more to it, a deeper meaning that Cassia had been too frightened to see at the time. As they walked down the corridor toward the dining hall, passing guards who now saluted Marcus as the heir, Cassia felt the weight of destiny settling over them both. The council had been right, the throne never waited. And somewhere out there, forces were gathering, drawn by the revelation of Marcus's true bloodline. First pack. The original wolves. If there were others out there who carried that blood, they would come. And they would either want to protect Marcus or to use him. Either way, everything was about to change. A servant approached, bowing low. "Luna Cassia, there's a message for you. It arrived by Raven this morning." Cassia took the sealed parchment, her hand steady despite the fear coiling in her gut. She knew, even before breaking the seal, that this message would alter everything. That whatever words waited inside would set them on a path from which there could be no turning back. She broke the seal and unfolded the parchment. The message was written in blood, just 5 words. "We know where he is." Below those words, sketched in that same dried blood, was a symbol, a wolf's paw print overlaid with a crescent moon. The mark of the first pack. Cassia crumpled the message in her fist, letting her fire magic consume it until nothing but ash remained. Marcus was playing with his wooden wolf, completely oblivious, still innocent despite everything that had happened. She watched him for a long moment, memorizing this peaceful scene, knowing that peace was about to become a luxury they could no longer afford. "Marcus," she said gently, kneeling down to his level, "how would you like to go on an adventure?" His eyes lit up the way only a toddler's eyes could. "A real adventure. With dragons." "Maybe," she said, managing a smile. "But first we need to pack. Can you help Mama pack?" "Yes, I'll pack my wolf." He clutched the carved figurine tighter. As Marcus ran ahead toward his room, chattering about all the things he wanted to bring on their adventure, Cassia stood slowly. She had protected Marcus for 2 years through deception and secrecy. Now she would protect him through action. She didn't know who had sent the message. She didn't know if they were friend or foe. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would not wait for them to come. She would not let Marcus become a target in some ancient power struggle. They would leave the Moonstone Palace before nightfall. They would go into hiding, far from the reaches of the council and the pack politics. And she would find out the truth about Marcus's mother, about the first pack, about why everyone seemed to want her son. She called for her most trusted servants, the ones who'd helped her through those first terrifying months with Marcus, the ones who'd kept her secret. They came quickly: Valentina, her head of household; Rufus, her master-at-arms; and Helena, Marcus's nursemaid. "We need to leave," Cassia said without preamble. "Tonight, before the moon rises. Pack only what we can carry. Tell no one where we're going. If anyone asks, we've gone to the summer palace for Marcus's health." Valentina's eyes widened. "My Luna, what's happened?" "Everything," Cassia said. "And nothing good. Just trust me. Please." They scattered to prepare, asking no more questions. That was the benefit of loyalty. It didn't require explanation. Cassia went to her own chambers, pulling out the small chest where she kept her most precious possessions. At the bottom, wrapped in silk, was something she'd never shown anyone. The blanket Marcus had been wrapped in when he'd arrived. The one with the note pinned to it. She'd said she'd burned the note, and she had. But she'd kept the blanket, because it smelled like Marcus's birth mother, like wolf and winter and something else, something ancient and wild. She'd kept it because someday, when Marcus was old enough, she'd wanted to be able to give him this piece of his past. Now she lifted the blanket to her face, breathing in that faded scent, trying to understand. Who had Marcus's mother been? Why had she given him up? And why had she chosen Cassia, of all people, to be his protector? The blanket was woven with thread of silver, a rare and expensive material that only the oldest families could afford. Cassia had noticed this before but hadn't thought much of it. Now she looked closer, studying the pattern woven into the fabric. It wasn't random, it was a family crest. A wolf standing before a full moon, with stars arranged in a specific constellation around it. She'd seen this crest before. In history books. In ancient texts about the first pack. This was the crest of House Aurelia, the royal family of the first pack, the ones who'd supposedly died out when the Great War had torn the wolf world apart 3 centuries ago. If Marcus's mother had been from House Aurelia, that meant... Cassia's mind spun with implications. It meant Marcus wasn't just carrying first pack blood. He was first pack royalty. The true heir to a throne that hadn't existed in centuries. And if there were others out there who knew this, others who wanted to reclaim that throne. "Mama, I packed." Marcus's voice came from the doorway. He was dragging a bag almost as big as he was, stuffed with toys and clothes, and his beloved wooden wolf perched on top. Cassia smiled despite everything. "That's perfect, sweetheart. Now, can you do something very important for Mama?" "Yes. Can you be very quiet? Like when we play the hiding game?" Marcus nodded seriously. He loved the hiding game, where they would pretend to be rabbits hiding from a fox, staying perfectly still and silent. "We're going to play that game for real now. Just for a little while. Can you do that?" "I can be the quietest rabbit ever," Marcus whispered, demonstrating. "Good boy." As the sun set and darkness crept across the palace grounds, Cassia and her small group made their way through the servants' passages, paths that most of the pack didn't even know existed. Rufus led the way, checking each turn, each corner. Helena carried Marcus, who'd fallen asleep against her shoulder, exhausted from the excitement of the day. They made it to the stables without incident. Horses were ready, saddled and provisioned by Valentina's efficient hands. They would ride through the night, heading north toward the borderlands where pack law was less stringent, where they might find sanctuary. But as Cassia mounted her horse, Marcus woke up. He looked around, confused, and then his golden eyes focused on something beyond the stable doors. "Mama," he said, his voice clear in the quiet night. The Dark Lady is here again. Cassia's blood turned to ice. She wheeled her horse around, searching the shadows. And there she was, the woman from the courtroom, stepping into the light of the stable lanterns. Up close, Cassia could see her clearly now. She was younger than Cassia had thought, perhaps only a few years older than Cassia herself. But her eyes were ancient, holding centuries of knowledge and pain. And those eyes were fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made Cassia's wolf snarl. "I'm not here to hurt him," the woman said, her voice surprisingly soft. "I'm here to help." "Stay back," Cassia warned, her hand moving to the knife at her belt. The woman raised her hands, showing she was unarmed. "My name is Lavinia. Lavinia Aurelia. And Marcus. Marcus is my nephew." The world seemed to stop. Cassia heard nothing but the pounding of her own heart. "What?" "His mother was my sister, Livia Aurelia. She died giving birth to him, but not before she told me to ensure he reached you safely. I was the one who left him at your gates. I was the one who wrote the note." Cassia's knife was in her hand now, pointed at Lavinia's heart. "You're lying. Marcus's mother's name was Livia. Like the counselor. It's a common name in our family. My sister chose to use it when she went into hiding, hoping it would help her blend in. But yes, her true name was Livia Aurelia, last surviving heir of House Aurelia before Marcus was born. Why should I believe you?" Lavinia reached slowly into her cloak and pulled out a locket. She opened it, showing Cassia a portrait inside, a woman who looked exactly like Lavinia, but softer somehow with kinder eyes. And in her arms, a newborn baby with golden eyes. "This was painted the day before she died," Lavinia said quietly. "She made me promise two things, that I would get Marcus to safety, and that I would watch over him from the shadows until he was old enough to know the truth. I've kept both promises. If you've been watching over him, where were you when Priscilla tried to take him? I was the one who sent Drusilla to you with the journal. I've been sabotaging Priscilla's plans from the beginning. But I couldn't reveal myself, not until I was certain you were truly willing to fight for him." Cassia stared at this woman who claimed to be Marcus's aunt, searching for any sign of deception. But all she saw was grief and love and a desperate hope. "Why come forward now?" Cassia asked. "Because the message you received this morning, it wasn't a threat. It was a warning. The remnants of House Aurelia have finally found Marcus. They're coming and they're bringing an army. They want to restore the first pack, to reclaim the throne that was stolen from us. And they see Marcus as their figurehead, their symbol. He's a child. He's a weapon," Lavinia said bluntly. "To them that's all he'll ever be. But to you, to me, he's family. That's why I'm here. You can't protect him alone, Cassia. You need allies. You need the truth. And you need to understand what's coming." Marcus was watching this exchange with wide eyes. His little hand clutched in Helena's dress. He looked at Lavinia, then at Cassia, then back again. And then he did something that shocked everyone. He squirmed out of Helena's arms and walked over to Lavinia. He stood in front of her, tilting his head back to look up at her face. "You smell like my dream," he said. Lavinia's composure cracked. Tears filled her eyes. "Your dream? The one about my first mama. You smell the same." "That's because..." Lavinia's voice broke. "That's because she was my twin. We shared everything. Even our scent." Marcus considered this with the serious contemplation only a toddler could manage. Then he held out his wooden wolf. "You can hold it if you want. But I need it back." Lavinia took the carved wolf with trembling hands. "Thank you, Marcus. I promise to give it back." She knelt down so she was at his eye level. "Your first mama loved you very much. She wanted to keep you safe more than anything in the world. That's why she sent you to your new mama. Because she knew that Cassia would protect you and love you the way you deserve." "Did my first mama go to sleep forever?" Marcus asked. "Yes, sweetheart. But she's watching over you always. And I'm here now to help keep you safe." Marcus seemed to accept this. He took his wolf back and returned to Helena, apparently satisfied with the explanation. Cassia watched all of this, her heart a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Could she trust Lavinia? Did she have a choice? If an army was truly coming, she couldn't face them alone. "Tell me everything," Cassia said finally, lowering her knife but not sheathing it. "I want to know about Marcus's mother, about House Aurelia, about what's coming. And then I'll decide if we ride with you or without you." Lavinia nodded, relief evident on her face. "Can we go somewhere private? This story is long and the night is short." They moved deeper into the stables, into a room used for tack storage. Rufus stood guard outside while the others gathered around as Lavinia began to speak. 300 years ago, House Aurelia ruled all the packs. We weren't tyrants. We were peacekeepers, unifiers, blessed by the moon goddess herself to maintain balance. But power breeds envy, and envy breeds betrayal. Other families, other packs, they wanted what we had. So they formed an alliance and they waged war. The war lasted 20 years. By the end, most of House Aurelia was dead. Only a handful escaped, scattering into hiding, changing their names, suppressing their bloodline to survive. My sister and I were born in hiding, raised by our grandmother who was one of the last survivors. She taught us our history, our heritage, but she also taught us to hide it, to survive. Livia was different from me. She dreamed of restoring our house, of reclaiming our place. When she met Lucius, she thought she'd found a way. He was a prince, powerful in his own right, and he loved her. They mated in secret, because an arranged marriage was already planned for him. But when Livia became pregnant, everything changed. Lucius died in battle, legitimately died. There was no conspiracy there. And Livia was alone with a child growing inside her who carried 2 royal bloodlines. She knew the pack would never accept him, would see him as a threat. So she made a plan. She would give birth in secret, then send Marcus to the one person Lucius had spoken of with respect and trust, you. Cassia's throat was tight. "Lucius never loved me." "No," Lavinia agreed. "But he trusted you. He told Livia that you were honorable, strong and clever. That if he'd had to have an arranged mate, he was grateful it was you. That's why Livia chose you to raise her son." "She died in childbirth." Lavinia's face darkened. "No. She was murdered. 3 days after Marcus was born, assassins found her. They were sent by the same families who destroyed House Aurelia originally. Somehow, they'd learned of Marcus's birth, of his bloodline. They killed my sister and tried to kill Marcus too. But I got to him first. I fled with him through the winter forests, barely staying ahead of our pursuers. When I reached the Moonstone Palace, I knew I couldn't stay. They were too close. So I left him at your gates with that note and I led the assassins away from him." "Did you kill them?" A cold smile touched Lavinia's lips. "Eventually. But more came. They've been hunting for Marcus ever since, and I've been staying one step ahead, eliminating them when I could, misleading them when I couldn't. But now..." She took a shaky breath. "Now the main force of House Aurelia has learned of Marcus's existence. Not the assassins, but the true remnants of our house. Those who survived, who've been gathering strength in secret for 3 centuries. They see Marcus as their salvation, their chance to reclaim everything that was lost. And that's bad because..." Rufus asked from the doorway. "Because they don't want Marcus as a person. They want him as a symbol. They'll mold him, shape him, use him to wage war against the current packs. Thousands will die. And Marcus..." She looked at the sleeping child in Helena's arms. "Marcus will be destroyed by the weight of expectations and bloodshed. So what do we do?" Cassia asked. "We run. We hide. We buy time. Marcus needs to grow up away from all of this. He needs to be a child, not a figurehead. When he's older, when he's strong enough to make his own choices, then he can decide what to do with his legacy. But right now he just needs to survive." "Where would we go?" "I have a safe house in the far north, beyond even the northern pack's territory. It's remote, warded with old magic. We could live there, the three of us, until Marcus is grown. The three of us. You, me, and Marcus. I'm his aunt. His only blood relative left. And you're his mother in every way that matters. Together we can protect him. Cassia looked at Marcus, at his peaceful sleeping face, and she thought about all the choices that had led to this moment. She thought about the night he'd arrived at her gates, about every sleepless night spent watching over him, about every moment of joy and fear and love. She thought about the life she'd built for him here, in the Moonstone Palace, and the life she'd have to leave behind. But there was no real choice. There had never been a choice. We leave tonight, Cassia said. But we don't go to your safe house. Not yet. First, we need to eliminate the immediate threat. What threat? Priscilla. She's in the dungeons, but her followers are still free. They know about Marcus's bloodline now. They'll come for him, or they'll sell the information to whoever pays the most. We need to root them out before we disappear. Lavinia's eyes gleamed with approval. You think like a warrior, Luna. I think like a mother, Cassia corrected. And mothers protect their children. By any means necessary. They spent the next hour planning. Lavinia had names. All of Priscilla's followers, everyone who'd been part of her conspiracy. Rufus had contacts in the pack's security forces, loyal wolves who wouldn't ask questions. Between them, they could sweep through the palace tonight, quietly neutralizing every threat before dawn broke. It was dangerous. It was probably illegal by pack law. But Cassia was beyond caring about legality. Marcus's safety was the only law that mattered now. As they moved through the palace like shadows, eliminating Priscilla's network one by one, not killing them, but ensuring they'd never be a threat again, Cassia felt her wolf singing with savage satisfaction. This was what it meant to be a mother. Not just gentle lullabies and soft kisses, but also claws and teeth and the willingness to do whatever it took. By the time the sun rose, it was done. Priscilla's followers were either in custody or had fled the territory entirely. The palace was secure. And Cassia, Lavinia, Rufus, Helena, Valentina, and Marcus were riding out the northern gates, heading toward a future that was uncertain but theirs to shape. Marcus woke as they crossed into the borderlands, rubbing his eyes. Where are we going, Mama? On an adventure, Cassia said, echoing their conversation from yesterday. A real one. With dragons. Maybe someday. For now, with just us. And Auntie Lavinia. Cassia glanced at Lavinia, who was riding beside them. The woman had tears on her cheeks, hearing Marcus call her Auntie for the first time. Yes, Cassia said. With Auntie Lavinia too. Marcus seemed happy with this. He settled back against Cassia's chest, watching the world roll by, pointing out birds and clouds and all the things that fascinated toddlers. And as they rode deeper into the unknown, leaving behind everything Cassia had ever known, she felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. Not just the desperate hope of survival, but real hope for the future. Hope that Marcus could grow up strong and free. Hope that they could build a life together, the three of them, away from prophecies and bloodlines and destiny. But they'd barely traveled a day when Lavinia suddenly pulled her horse to a stop, her face going pale. What is it? Cassia asked. Do you smell that? Cassia breathed in deep. And yes, there was smoke, and blood, and death. There's a village just ahead, Rufus said grimly. Or there was. They rode forward cautiously, and what they found made Cassia's blood run cold. The village was destroyed, burned to the ground. Bodies lay scattered in the streets, wolves who'd been slaughtered without mercy. And in the center of the village square, written in blood on what remained of the village hall, was a message. We are coming for the boy. Below it, the symbol of House Aurelia, but twisted, corrupted into something dark and wrong. Who did this? Helena whispered, her face ashen. Not the remnants of House Aurelia, Lavinia said, her voice shaking. This is something else. Something worse. Those aren't just wolves dead. Look at their faces. Cassia looked, though everything in her wanted to turn away. The dead wolves all had expressions of absolute terror frozen on their faces. Their eyes were burned out, leaving only empty sockets. Old magic, Lavinia breathed. Blood magic. The kind that was forbidden even before the fall of House Aurelia. Someone's resurrecting the forbidden arts, Rufus said, and using them to hunt Marcus. As if summoned by his name, Marcus whimpered in Cassia's arms. She pulled him close, covering his eyes so he wouldn't see the carnage around them. But he'd already seen enough. He was shaking, his little body trembling with fear. "Mama," he whispered. "The bad people are here." "What bad people, sweetheart?" "The ones from my nightmares. The ones with empty eyes." Cassia and Lavinia exchanged a horrified look. Marcus had been having nightmares. Why hadn't Cassia noticed? "How long have you been having these nightmares?" Cassia asked gently. "Since forever," Marcus said. "They come every night. They're looking for me. They want to take me to the dark place. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to make you sad." His golden eyes were so serious, so much older than his 2 years. "You're always sad when I talk about scary things." Cassia's heart shattered. Her baby had been suffering in silence, trying to protect her feelings. "Oh, Marcus, you can always tell me about scary things. That's what mamas are for." But even as she said it, she knew the truth. Whatever was hunting Marcus, it had been in his head from the beginning, tracking him, watching him, maybe even since birth. "We need to keep moving," Lavinia said urgently. "If they did this here, they know where we are. They're hurting us, pushing us toward something." "Toward what?" "I don't know. But we can't stay here." They rode hard through the day and into the night, only stopping when the horses were ready to collapse. They made camp in a dense forest, setting magical wards around the perimeter. Marcus fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the fear and the travel. Cassia sat up through the night again, keeping watch, her hand on her blade. Lavinia sat beside her, equally vigilant. "Tell me the truth," Cassia said quietly. "How bad is this?" "Bad," Lavinia admitted. "Blood magic hasn't been used in centuries. Whoever's hunting Marcus, they're powerful beyond anything I've encountered. And patient. They've been planning this for years, maybe since before Marcus was even born." "But why Marcus? What's so special about him that someone would go to these lengths?" "His bloodline. It's not just that he's part first pack, it's that he's a pure heir. His mother was full-blooded Aurelia, and his father was descended from the original pack alphas. That combination hasn't existed since the first pack fell. Marcus's blood could be used for many things. Rituals, spells. He could be a source of tremendous power for someone who knows how to tap into it." Cassia felt sick. "They want to use him like a battery. Or worse. There are legends about the first pack bloodline, that it can open gates to other realms, that it can grant immortality, that it can reshape reality itself. Most of it is probably myth. But even if a fraction of it is true, someone will hunt him forever." "Yes." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Cassia said, "We can't keep running. We need to find whoever's behind this and stop them." "How?" "I don't know yet. But Marcus can't spend his entire life looking over his shoulder. He deserves better." She looked at the sleeping child, his face peaceful in sleep despite his nightmares. "He deserves to be free." Lavinia nodded slowly. "You're right. But finding them won't be easy. They're hidden, protected by layers of magic and secrecy. Then we'll peel back those layers, one at a time if we have to." A sound in the forest made them both freeze. Footsteps coming closer. Multiple people. Cassia drew her blade. Lavinia's hands began to glow with defensive magic. But the figures that emerged from the trees weren't enemies. They were refugees. Wolves from the village they'd passed, the few who'd survived. They were wounded, terrified, and desperate. "Please," one of them begged. "We've been tracking you for hours. We need your help. They took our children. The ones with empty eyes. They came and they took all the children." Cassia and Lavinia exchanged a look. How many children? Lavinia asked. 12. All of them under 5 years old. They said. The wolf's voice broke. They said they needed them for a ritual. That they would return them if we delivered Marcus Lucius Augustus to them by the new moon. That's 2 days from now, Cassia said. The refugees looked at Marcus's sleeping form. Is that him? Is that the boy they want? Cassia moved to stand between them and Marcus, her wolf rising to the surface. If you think I'm going to hand over my son. No, the wolf said quickly. No, we're not asking that. We're asking you to help us save our children. You're Luna Cassia. Everyone knows you fought the council for him. Everyone knows you die before letting anyone harm him. We need someone like that. Someone who understands what it means to protect a child. Cassia looked at the desperate faces around her. These wolves who'd lost everything. She looked at Marcus, still sleeping, still innocent despite the darkness closing in around him. And she made a decision that would change everything. Where are they holding the children? The wolf's face flooded with hope. In the old temple ruins, 3 days' ride from here. But it's protected by blood magic. No one can get in without being invited or having first pack blood, Lavinia finished. Which Marcus and I have. This is exactly what they want, Rufus warned. They're using those children as bait to draw Marcus out. I know, Cassia said. But we're not going to let 12 children die because we're afraid. We'll go. We'll get those children back. And we'll end whoever's behind this. How? Helena asked. Even if we rescue the children, these people will just keep coming. Then we make them afraid to come, Cassia said coldly. We show them what happens when you threaten a mother's child. Over the next 2 days they prepared. The refugees who could fight joined them. Lavinia taught Cassia and Rufus everything she knew about countering blood magic. They gathered supplies, forged weapons, and made a plan that was equal parts desperate and brilliant. And through it all, Marcus watched with those golden eyes that saw too much. He didn't ask questions. He just stayed close to Cassia. His wooden wolf clutched in his hand and waited. On the night before they were to leave for the temple, Marcus crawled into Cassia's lap as she sat by the fire. Mama, are you going to fight the bad people? Yes, baby. Will you win? Cassia looked into his eyes, those eyes that held the weight of destiny, and she made him a promise. I will always win, Marcus. Because losing is not an option when it comes to you. Do you understand? Nothing in this world or any other will ever take you from me. What if they're stronger? Then I'll be smarter. What if they're smarter? Then I'll be faster. What if they're faster? Then I'll be meaner. She smiled fiercely. There's no force in existence that's stronger than a mother protecting her child. Marcus thought about this, then nodded. Okay. I believe you. Good. Now, I need you to stay here with Helena and Valentina while I go get those children. Can you do that? Can you be brave for me? I'm always brave, Marcus said solemnly. Because you're my mama, and mamas make you brave. Cassia held him tight, memorizing the feel of him, just in case. Just in case this was goodbye. But it wouldn't be. She wouldn't let it be. The temple ruins rose from the earth like broken teeth, ancient stone columns reaching toward a sky that seemed too dark, as if even the stars were afraid to shine here. The air itself felt wrong, thick with old magic and fresh blood. Cassia, Lavinia, Rufus, and 20 volunteer fighters approached at dawn. They'd left Marcus safely hidden with Helena, Valentina, and the remaining refugees, protected by every ward and spell they could manage. I can feel them, Lavinia whispered. The children. They're alive, but they're scared. So scared. Can you sense how many enemies? At least 30, maybe more. And something else. Something ancient and angry. Whatever they're planning to wake up with this ritual, it's not human. It's not even wolf. Then we stop it before it wakes, Cassia said. They'd debated sneaking in, but Cassia had decided on a different approach. She wanted whoever was behind this to see her coming. She wanted them to know that they'd made a terrible mistake. Remember, she said to her fighters. We're not here to kill. We're here to rescue. Get the children out first. Everything else is secondary. They moved forward, and immediately the blood magic activated. Walls of red light sprang up around them, trying to pen them in. But Lavinia was ready. She'd spent 2 days preparing counterspells, ancient first pack magic that she'd learned from her grandmother. The red walls shattered like glass. The temple's defenders poured out, wolves corrupted by blood magic, their eyes empty just like the dead in the village. They moved wrong, jerky and unnatural like puppets on strings. Don't kill them if you can help it, Cassia shouted. They might be victims too, forced into this. The battle was chaos. Cassia fought with everything she had, her blade singing through the air, her wolf lending her strength and speed. Beside her, Rufus was a force of nature, his military training evident in every move. And Lavinia was terrifying, her magic tearing through the corrupted wolves' defenses, breaking the blood magic that controlled them. One by one, the corrupted wolves fell, and as they did, their eyes cleared. Some of them looked horrified at what they'd been forced to do. Others simply collapsed, grateful to be free. They pushed deeper into the temple, following the sound of children crying. The corridors were dark, lit only by sickly red light from blood runes painted on every surface. And at the center of it all, in what had once been the temple's heart, they found them. 12 children, all of them strapped to stone altars, their small bodies covered in painted runes. And standing over them, conducting some kind of ritual, was a figure in a black robe. "Stop!" Cassia commanded, her voice echoing through the chamber. The figure turned slowly, pulling back its hood. And Cassia's blood froze. It was Counselor Livia. The same Counselor Livia who'd sat in judgment during Marcus's trial. The same one who'd seemed so concerned with upholding pack law. "Luna Cassia," Livia said, her voice calm. "How predictable. I knew you couldn't resist trying to save these children. Just like you couldn't resist claiming Marcus as your own. You're behind all of this. Behind it. I orchestrated it. Every piece, every move, all leading to this moment. Why?" Lavinia demanded, stepping forward. "What do you want with these children? With Marcus?" Livia's eyes gleamed with madness. "To restore what was lost. To bring back the true power of the first pack. These children, they're not important. They're just fuel for the ritual. But Marcus is the key. His blood is pure enough to open the gate." "What gate?" "The gate between our world and the realm of the old gods. The ones who gave us our gifts in the first place. They've been waiting for centuries to return, and with Marcus's blood, I can finally bring them through." "You're insane," Cassia breathed. "Am I? Or am I the only one who sees clearly? Our power has been diluted over the centuries, weakened by mixing with humans and common wolves. But if I can bring back the old gods, they'll purify us. They'll make us strong again. All I need is Marcus. Give him to me, and I'll spare these children. I'll even let you live. You can watch as I usher in a new age of wolf supremacy." "Never," Cassia snarled. Livia sighed. "Then you leave me no choice." She raised her hands, and the runes on the children's bodies flared bright. They screamed, all 12 of them screaming in agony, and Cassia felt her heart tear in two. "Stop it," she shouted. "Let them go. Bring me Marcus, and I will." Cassia looked at the children, at their pain, at their terror. She looked at Lavinia, who was desperately trying to counter the blood magic but couldn't get through Livia's defenses. She looked at Rufus and her fighters, who were being held back by a barrier of red light. And she made a decision. "I'll get him," she said. "I'll bring Marcus here. Please, let the children go." "Cassia, no." Lavinia started. "It's the only way," Cassia said. "You know it is." Livia smiled triumphantly. "A wise choice. You have 1 hour. Bring Marcus here alone or I start killing the children. 1 every 5 minutes until either they're all dead or Marcus is in my hands." Cassia turned and ran, her heart pounding, her mind racing. She had 1 hour. 1 hour to save 12 children and her son. But as she burst out of the temple and into the morning light, she wasn't heading back to Marcus. She was heading to the cliff overlooking the temple, where she'd hidden her secret weapon. Because Cassia hadn't told anyone everything. She hadn't told them that she'd been preparing for this moment since the day Marcus had arrived. She hadn't told them about the ancient texts she'd studied, the magic she'd learned in secret, the spell she'd been saving for when everything else failed. It was a spell from the first pack, one that had been forbidden because of its cost. It would strip away all her power, all her magic, everything that made her a Luna. But in exchange, it would give her one burst of absolute power. Enough power to break any blood magic, to shatter any defense. Enough power to save the children and destroy Livia. She'd live, but she'd be mortal afterward. Fully human, unable to shift. Cut off from her wolf forever. But Marcus would be safe. The children would be safe. And that was worth any price. Cassia began the spell, speaking words that hurt her throat, that tasted like goodbye. She felt her wolf howling inside her, understanding what was happening, not wanting to let go. But Cassia pushed forward, because this was what love demanded. Not just the soft parts but the hard parts too. The sacrifices. The choices that broke you but saved everyone else. Power built inside her, growing and growing until she thought she might burst. And then, when she couldn't hold it anymore, she released it. The wave of pure first pack magic slammed into the temple like a tsunami. Blood runes shattered. Barriers fell. And Livia's control over the children broke instantly. Cassia didn't wait to see what happened next. She ran back into the temple, even as she felt her own magic draining away, leaving her hollow. She reached the chamber just as her fighters were freeing the children, carrying them out. Lavinia was locked in magical combat with Livia, the two of them throwing spell after spell. And then Cassia saw him. Marcus. He was standing in the doorway of the chamber, his wooden wolf clutched in his hand, his golden eyes wide with fear. "Marcus," she screamed. "Run. Get out of here." But it was too late. Livia saw him too. She threw Lavinia aside with a blast of magic and lunged for Marcus, her hands reaching, her face twisted with desperate hunger. Time seemed to slow. Cassia was too far away. She'd never reach him in time. Her magic was gone, drained by the spell. She had nothing left. Nothing except her love. Cassia threw herself forward, putting her human body between Livia's magic and Marcus. The spell hit her full in the chest, and pain like she'd never known consumed her. She felt her ribs crack, felt her heart stutter. But she stayed standing. She stayed between Livia and Marcus. "Mama!" Marcus cried. "Stay back, baby," Cassia gasped. "Stay back." Livia laughed, wild and broken. "You stupid woman. You've given up everything for a child who isn't even yours. Do you think that makes you noble? You're just—" She never finished, because Marcus spoke. And when he spoke, the entire temple shook. "Stop hurting my mama." His voice wasn't a toddler's voice anymore. It was layered with power, with authority that came from generations of royal blood. His golden eyes blazed with inner light, and suddenly he wasn't just a 2-year-old child. He was something more, something ancient awakening. "You want my blood," Marcus said, and the voice was still his but also something older. "You want my power. Then take it. Take it all." He raised his hand, and every rune in the temple lit up, not with red light but with gold. Pure, clean light that burned away the corruption, the blood magic, everything dark and twisted. Livia screamed, trying to shield herself, but the light was too strong. It washed over her, through her, purifying her by force. And when it faded, she collapsed, power stripped away. Just a broken wolf sobbing on the floor. The light faded, and Marcus stumbled. Cassia caught him, pulling him close despite the agony in her chest. "Marcus, what did you do?" "I protected you, Mama," he said, and now his voice was his own again, small and scared and very, very tired. "Like you always protect me." "But how?" "The Light Lady taught me." In my dreams. She said if you were ever in danger, I should call on the old gods. So I did. He yawned, his golden eyes fluttering closed. I'm sleepy now, Mama. It's okay, baby. You can sleep. I've got you. And as Marcus fell asleep in her arms, Cassia looked around at the aftermath. The children were safe, being carried out by her fighters. Livia was unconscious, powerless, defeated. The blood magic was broken. It was over. They'd won. But at what cost? Lavinia knelt beside her, examining Cassia's injuries. You're hurt badly. We need to get you to a healer. I'm fine, Cassia lied, though she could feel herself fading. The children, are they all safe? All of them. Thanks to you. Thanks to Marcus. He spoke to the old gods, Cassia whispered. A 2-year-old child spoke to gods. He's not just any child, Lavinia said gently. You've always known that. I just wanted him to be normal. To have a childhood. He will. But he'll also be extraordinary. Because you raised him to be both. Lavinia smiled through her tears. Come on. Let's get you both home. They carried Cassia and Marcus out of the temple together, into sunlight that felt like a blessing after so much darkness. The refugees were waiting, reuniting with their children, crying and laughing and holding each other tight. And when they saw Cassia, they knelt. All of them, every single one. Thank you, Luna, they said as one voice. Thank you for saving our children. Thank you for believing I would, Cassia said. They made camp nearby while Cassia healed. It took days, and the healer said she was lucky to be alive. The spell she'd cast had taken everything. Her magic, her ability to shift, even some of her enhanced strength and senses. She was essentially human now. But Marcus was safe. The children were safe. And somehow that made it worth it. On the third day, as Cassia sat watching Marcus play with the other children, finally just being a child without the weight of destiny on his small shoulders, Lavinia approached. We need to talk about what happens next, Lavinia said. I know. Livia is in custody, but she's not the only threat. There will be others who want to use Marcus. Yes, but I've been thinking. Maybe we don't need to hide anymore. Maybe it's time to stop running and start building something new. What do you mean? Marcus is the heir to House Aurelia. His bloodline is pure. His power is undeniable. What if we used that? What if we gathered the remnants of the first pack, the ones who've been scattered and hiding, and we united them? Not to wage war, not to seize power, but to create a sanctuary. A place where wolves like us can live without fear, where children like Marcus can grow up protected. Cassia considered this. It was ambitious. It was dangerous. But it was also possible. We'd need support. Territory that no pack would challenge. I know where we could go. My grandmother told me about a place, the original homeland of House Aurelia, abandoned after the fall. It's protected by ancient wards that only first pack blood can break. We could rebuild there. Start fresh. And Marcus. Marcus stays with you. You're his mother. That never changes. But when he's older, when he's ready, he can choose what to do with his legacy. Let our people or walk away. The choice will be his. It was a dream. A beautiful, impossible dream. But as Cassia watched Marcus laugh while playing with his wooden wolf, she thought maybe, just maybe, it could work. Okay, she said. Let's do it. Let's build something new. And so they did. Over the following months, word spread through the scattered remnants of the first pack. The heir had been found. The bloodline lived. And a sanctuary was being built. Wolves came from everywhere. Refugees, survivors, those who'd been hiding their heritage for generations. They came with nothing but hope, and they found a home. The old homeland of House Aurelia was reclaimed, its wards broken by Marcus's blood. They rebuilt the fallen houses, restored the ancient gardens, and created a community based not on conquest or power, but on protection and peace. Cassia watched it all with pride, even as she struggled with her new limitations. Being human among wolves was difficult. But Marcus never treated her differently. To him, she was still Mama, still the strongest person he knew. And on the night of Marcus's 3rd birthday, as they celebrated with their new community, a community that called themselves the Pack of the Phoenix, risen from the ashes of the past, Cassia realized something. She'd lost her magic, but she'd gained something more valuable. She'd gained a family. Not just Marcus and Lavinia, but all of these wolves who'd found sanctuary together. All of these children who could grow up free. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she whispered to Marcus as he blew out his candles. "Make a wish, Mama," he said. "I don't need to wish for anything. I have everything I want right here." Marcus considered this seriously. "Then I'll wish for both of us. I wish that we'll always be together. Forever and ever." "That's a good wish," Cassia said, pulling him close. And as the pack celebrated around them, as wolves laughed and children played and the community thrived, Cassia knew that they'd made it. They'd survived. They'd built something beautiful from tragedy. Marcus would grow up safe, loved, free to choose his own path. And whatever that path might be, Cassia would be there beside him. Because that's what mothers do. But later that night, after Marcus was asleep, after the celebrations had ended, Cassia stood at her window and looked out over their new home. And in the distance, at the edge of the forest, she saw a figure watching. A woman with silver hair, standing in the moonlight. The figure raised a hand in greeting. Or maybe in warning. Then she disappeared into the trees. And Cassia knew, with absolute certainty, that this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning. The woman in the forest wasn't an enemy. She wasn't a friend. She was something far more complicated. She was Marcus's grandmother, the last surviving elder of House Aurelia. And she'd been watching for a very, very long time, waiting for her grandson to be strong enough for the truth. The truth about who Marcus really was. The truth about what he was destined to become. And the truth about the war that was coming. A war that would